The NFL announced yesterday that the hip drop tackle is being eliminated from the game, and I don't agree with this decision. I also don't agree with the decision about the targeting rules, because it's impossible to legislate violence out of a violent game. If you don't want people to get injured playing football, people shouldn't be playing football. That's the only way to 100% prevent injuries playing football. And you can say, oh, but injuries are less likely in flag football. Non-contact injuries happen. You're more likely actually to suffer an ACL, MCL, PCL tear in flag football than in regular football because of the cutting and the field and turf and things of that nature. But by doing this, the NFL is giving defenders a smaller area to target on tackling the ball carrier, which is going to lead to more injuries now in that area. Injuries are a part of the game of football, and while it stinks that people have their brains irreparably damaged from football, have their bodies irreparably damaged from football, after they reach college now, and after they reach the professionals, prior to the NIL, once they reach the professionals, they made that choice to play the game. I don't think contact football should exist before college. Just flat out there. But the targeting rule, the hip drop tackle rule, the horse collar tackle rule, all those rules in the name of player safety just eliminate the ways that natural tackling would occur that may or may not cause injury, and now cause players to focus on hitting a certain area of the body in a certain way. And as they do that, they're going to become better and more powerful and stronger and cause more injuries to that part of the body, which is going to increase the amount of injuries suffered from, maybe instead of brain injuries, now we're talking about kidney lacerations next year. Maybe instead of knee injuries, although the hip drop tackle isn't going to actually lower knee injuries like the NFL thinks, it's actually going to increase them because defenders are just going to go straight for the knee. But maybe instead of talking about knee injuries, we're talking about like blood vessel injuries in the chest, in the thoracic cavity. Maybe we're talking about other severe injuries. You cannot eliminate violence from a violent game. And by trying to legislate it out without making the game no longer a violent contact game, what you're doing is just legislating the areas that you're okay with being injured. So essentially, the NFL has decided that injuries from here, which would be T1 on the spine to the knee, to just below the knee, are fine. Injuries above the head and neck area and below the knee are not fine because they want to avoid people targeting players in areas that can cause those injuries. So what's going to end up happening is injuries between below the neck and above the knee are going to increase. And then the NFL is going to change a rule for whatever injury happens to be the most. So let's say upper leg injuries. I don't know the bone up here. Femur. Let's say femur injuries start happening. Or rib injuries start happening. Then they're going to lower the area that you can hit people. And then it's going to move the injuries into an even smaller area. And then what it's going to be from below the chest to above the waist. And that's a very unprotected area, only protected by visceral and subcutaneous fat, no bones. Like no bones whatsoever there. There might be a few, but basically no bones. And you got to deal with all of that. And then suddenly now we're having people come out with internal bleeding, kidney injuries. And now we've taken football from a violent game that has a high risk of long-term damage to a violent game that has an extreme risk of acute injury with a chance of being fatal. So all of this stuff in the name of player safety is actually doing the opposite.